Yes, hi Teresa. Thank you so much for taking the time to have a conversation with me. As you know, I have a podcast. You've been in my podcast already twice, so this is going to be the third time. Today, I want to talk to you about, of course, reactive attachment disorder, but especially about when the kids are getting older, like almost like past puberty or, when they are adults. Um, then a lot of things happen. Like usually when the kids are younger, we have our, programs or our methods and we can do, beautiful, great things. But when they're older, yeah, sometimes they have like a falling back or new stuff is happening. And I know also, including myself, that it's so hard and difficult to do or to find solutions and ways. And I know you already since 2016, and I think you're amazing with
Thank
talking to these youngsters because they, from the outside, you're like, oh, but there's something inside that you still see and we still see.
you.
And you're so good at getting that to the surface. So I hope we can get like inspirational conversations for the children themselves, who are grown-ups now and need to survive in their world, but also for the parents. So where can we start? Like, yeah.
Okay, but I just waves of thoughts just came to me while you were talking.
Yes.
Um, the reason we're so successful with the kids when they're still in our homes is because we can control the structure and the environment. And I've always said I'm going to write a book someday, and it's going to be called Good Parents Control Their Children and Other Myths of Parenting, because it is not our job to control the children. It is our job to control the environment so that the child learns how to control themselves. Because if they're dependent on you for control, as soon as you leave the room, they're going to do what they're not supposed to be doing because you are the thing that maintains their control. They need to internalize that control. And that's why we do the parenting that we do with these children with attachment disorder. Now, when they leave your home, all of that structure just dissolves. Now they have to test what they have learned about controlling themselves. And because they get out into that big bad world with all of that freedom, they struggle. And most of them will struggle mightily if they have not internalized all of those things that you've been working to do with them.
Mhm.
They've learned to live within that protective structure, but when that structure falls away, they have to refine themselves and relearn all their self-control stuff.
So I, listening to you, I'm looking for two answers. Like if there is like a adolescent or a youngster listening to this, what can he do? Or when the parent is listening to this, what can they still do? Or can they do anything?
Once the child leaves the home, all you have is that the, the relationship you've built with the child. Does the child still communicate with you? Does the child still ask you, you know, and there's a difference between asking versus manipulating. And that's where you have to have those self sensors to determine if I help my child, am I helping them or am I enabling them to continue down the negative path? If you're enabling, then you have to pull back. Um,
And I'm
but
thinking of I'm thinking of a family. They were doing very well when they did the program and our methods. The boy went to college and now he's coming home in the weekends and the parents are like, a different boy is coming home. We have the structure. This is the way we're doing it. And now for them it's very hard to keep the structure when he's only there for the weekends. How would
exactly. Although what you and this is what, when kids turn 18 and they think, okay, I'm going to turn 18 and now I'm free and I don't have to listen to mom and dad. And what I always tell them is that the only thing that changes when you're 18 is the fact that mom and dad are no longer legally obligated to keep a roof over your head and food in your belly and clothes on your back. If you're in their home disrespecting them, guess what? They can make you leave because your job is to want your parents to stay at home with you or want you to stay home with them because they enjoy your company. If you're making their life miserable, why on earth would they want you to stay? So it's just this rethinking. 18 does not mean freedom. 18 means responsibility.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Yeah.
if you're not meeting your responsibilities, you're going to find yourself in a really tough situation.
And where is the pain? No, not the pain, but where is the challenge? Because when I hear this and I'm thinking, oh, the parents are gonna say this to the kid who's only home in the weekends, they're gonna have drama every time when he comes home.
Well, and my suggestion would be he doesn't get to come home.
Oh,
If you're going to treat us like that, no, no, you can just stay at school. And I don't know what colleges, universities are like over there in Europe, but I know here, and I won't go into my politics and everything, but our universities, the quality of them have deteriorated so drastically that they're much more concerned about cultural issues than they are about educating. And most of these cultural issues are opposite of what their family, the family values are.
yeah,
So they come home and there's these constant conflicts
yeah.
because basically the child's being indoctrinated and it causes problems. And I don't know if that's going on over there with you guys or not. But yeah, if I'm sorry, when you come to my house, there's my rules and my rules apply. I don't care how old you are because this is my house and you are a guest in my home. And if you're not going to act accordingly, then you can just stay at school.
Yeah. People have parents have a hard time doing that, like making
Yes.
drastically uh, borders almost. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What you're saying about like the university and the school systems are changing. Of course, everything what's happened in the States takes a few years when it comes over here.
Well, we're starting to swing the pendulum in the other direction.
Oh,
So hopefully you won't get it as bad as we had it.
okay, yeah. But I do know that the parents that I was just talking about, they were observing or complaining about the fact that they had the really structure with the Wi-Fi because they had two different Wi-Fis. They really did their thing. One Wi-Fi for the parent, one for Wi-Fi for the boy, and he only had certain hours, and he had really good screen time structure and borders. But over there at the university is different. So for him, it's also difficult to make the
Oh, very much so.
all the time.
Because he's okay, so look at it like you've got him in this box and he's doing really, really well in the box. Then he goes out there and the box is gone. And then he comes back home and there's a box. That's not going to be comfortable for him
Yeah. Yeah.
because and I will tell you, my older daughter went away to college, came back home with her nursing degree, and lived at home for like 2 months. And we figured out really fast this wasn't going to work for long term because she had just gotten so used to running her own place because she had a dorm room and she was by herself and she could live life like she wanted to. And we didn't live it the same way at home. And it created tension and friction. And we realized it coming home is hard.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And she doesn't even have attachment issues.
Right. Yeah. No, this wasn't my totally bonded child.
Yeah, but yeah, and I'm thinking also like really fast in my head. Um, I've seen you do so many amazing talks with the children at camp, um, where you work with them. Can you say something about it? Like when they're all acting out and they do the manipulation things and they have the eye contact with the other adults, and you always have these amazing conversations. Maybe you can share them a little bit with us so parents
Okay,
can maybe take the word.
there's a couple of rules when talking with them. Number one, you want to go in um, with curiosity. And I do a whole lot more asking questions than I do speaking to. And because if you're basically lecturing the child and the teenager, young adult, they're not going to listen. They'll hear maybe 5 words and then they'll say, okay, this is not of interest of me. And they completely shut you down. And you just keep, it's like the Charlie Brown movies, wah, 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 wah. And they're not listening to a word you say. So instead of lecturing them, what I always do is I point out the facts and I stick to the facts and I don't sugarcoat anything ever. And I, number one, hold them accountable, but I do it through questions. So what happened? And they'll tell me what happened. Okay, so what was going on with you when that happened? And why did you think that was a good idea? And how did that work out for you? Well, and they'll answer all these questions, but what happens when you ask questions is you're requiring them to think with their brain instead of using your brain to live their life. So the more questions you can ask, the better off you'll be, just because it'll be much more effective because the child has to bring the answers out from themselves. And if I do lecture, if I do get to a place where it's okay, here's what you need to know, I will always say when I'm done, I will look at them and say, okay, what did I just say to you? Because you want to know what they got and what they didn't get.
Oh, that's a good.
Because they'll sit and they'll nod their head if they're being cooperative, and you'll think that, oh, look how well this is going, and da da da. And then you say, so what did I just say to you? And you find out they got maybe 2 points, if any. And okay, let's start over. I was talking about this. What do you think I said with regards to, so that they're now having to think?
Oh, that's great stuff. Yeah, yeah. And what do you do when the child has reactive attachment disorder? She or he is a grown up, but her, how do you call it? I don't know the translation. A lower intelligence, like a lower IQ. Because then,
Uh-huh.
yeah, the world is complicated as it is, but they're still a grown up with the grown up rules and laws. But and they think
Yeah.
they're all that.
What I do in there is simplify things, but exact same approach. Just don't go into as many complexities.
Yeah. And I have another example. It's a girl. She found a boy, of course, with his own challenges, and she's convinced he loves her. She leaves the house, and at one point, the boy sends her back. She wants to live the life with the boyfriend, but then at home, parents they are very concerned. What do you do, or can you do something in a situation like that as a parent? Because you know your child can be in danger, and your child can be get pregnant or get raped or get on drugs. You want to pull her with her hair back to your tribe, but yeah, that's
You
not
can't do it
possible.
anymore
Yeah,
because they are no longer dependents. And
yeah,
that's there's not a whole lot we can do unless we can use outside resources to again grab hold of their environment. But usually that requires something like they've broken the law and they go to jail, or they go into a mental hospital or some kind of receiving facility because they've gone that far. Most kids won't go to that extreme. And
Okay.
so you're kind of stuck
Yeah.
because there's not a whole lot that you can do,
Mhm.
because the success came from controlling the environment and you no longer have that.
You know what I also remember all of a sudden from my other podcasts with you that gave me hope at the time? You said during puberty, there's a lot of stuff going on with the brain. That's why they're temporarily out of order. But there is a new wave of like a puberty light version going on between, I think you said 23 until 25 or something?
Well, the human brain is not fully developed until about age 25.
Yeah.
So all of that stuff that's going on in there has the potential to improve. Whether it does or not, we don't control. And I have found that generally with low IQ type of like learning disabilities, extend that out until like 29, 30 instead of all developed by 25, usually somewhere around 29, later 20s, 30s. Um, and I say that because I've had a couple of my former clients that will come back to me and ask for help, but it usually is not until they get to that 25 or so.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember you saying that. Um, and what when the client, the grown up comes to you for help later on in life,
Mhm.
you approach them with the same structure that you just told us.
Yeah. And I might I don't have as much control because now they're adults. I can't talk to adults the way I talk to kids.
Mhm.
So there has to be some modification there. But and it's interesting because I just had a former client of mine and she's actually 30. Um, she had contacted me and we only did like 2 sessions. And I believe it's because she had gotten into her lifestyle. She liked being able to talk to me and tell me everything that was going on in her life. But then I started saying, so what are you going to do about it? You know, here's what needs to happen next. And that's when the appointments, oh, can't make it today, that kind of stuff. Because, of course, it feels good to hear us have a sympathetic ear, but when it comes down to actually doing the work, it gets a whole lot harder.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's what I see happening. Like I have my online course for parents, and I always
Mhm.
tell the parents, if the children of you want to have a conversation with me and they're open for it, I do that. And I am not a therapist. I'm not,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just love the children so much. And what I see happening, and that's why it's so interesting. And you see that at camp too, but even better if I have the online meetings with them, that they are so like a master in manipulating what they tell me. Yes, what they tell me. Not often the parents they get really like nervous, like, oh, what is my kid gonna tell you? I was like, don't worry. And I know that you told me that when you're working with the younger kids, you always have like the mirrored thing or the how do you call it the
Well,
mic.
the parents have given me, the parents have told me what's going on. So when I go in and talk with the kid, I have a whole lot more information to work with, and I'm much better at holding them accountable because I have this outside information that's about what the kid, because they will try to manipulate. And that is the struggle with working with older and even working with individuals. It's like everyone comes into a therapy session with an agenda. And if I don't know the outside, I mean, everyone's going to speak from their own perspective, but you have no idea how warped that perspective is. So yeah,
They're so good at it. They're so good at manipulating
yes, and
and
you don't even realize it.
that's
Yeah.
another thing that's like parents find really, really hard. I'm sure it's the same in America, is that when you don't have a trained RAD therapist, they don't understand the triangle, of the victim. How do you call it? Like they don't understand. They listen to the
The
kid
child. Yeah.
child, and then very
Yeah.
often the parents ask for help, and before they know, they're like, oh, now we're bad parents.
Well,
And
and this is why we always say don't ever work with a therapist that does not allow the parent to be a part of it, because the child will lie and the therapist, they're so convincing. And now the therapist aligns with the child against the parent. And now the child is going to get 10 times worse because they feel so powerful because they've now gotten this professional to buy all their garbage
yeah, oh,
and
that's so,
can
yeah.
turn them against the parents. That's called triangulation. And it's devastating.
Yeah, and what I hear now also lately with my groups is that they have other aids, usually through the government, so it's for free. And
Mhm.
what they always tell me, because our approach is different, and they say the therapist first want to start on the relationship, and I always show the triangle. First, there's respect. That's the foundation for trust, and when you have trust, you can have like a love or another kind of relationship. And most therapists or caregivers, or how do you call it, people who help parents with special need kids, they don't have that approach. They first want to go for the relationship. And for me, it's sometimes so hard to keep standing there for what I believe in, because most therapies, they don't have that approach.
Well, the therapists are trained. That's the first thing they teach you is about therapeutic relationship. And that the work that you're going to do with this client is going to come through the relationship that you form with them. The part that therapists don't get working with children with attachment disorder is that these parents have invested every ounce of blood, sweat, and tears into this kid, and they still don't trust the parents. What on earth makes you think they're going to trust you in a 1 hour session every week? I mean, that's just the therapists are lying to themselves
Yeah.
and they're being duped and they don't get it. That's why you have to have a trained therapist.
Yeah. And they're hard to find. And
Yeah, they are. There are
yes.
not a lot of us out there.
And how can we deal with the we cannot help the therapists because they probably not listen to this. But how can we help the children with the triangulation? And how can we help the parents with the triangulation?
Well, basically, my approach is to just call them out on it.
Oh, yeah.
And you get the parents, if you make sure that neither parent is making a decision regarding the child without the input of the other.
Yeah.
And the child, you got to tell the child, you can come to either one of us and ask for something, but we're not going to give you an answer until we've spoken to the other. Because usually one is softer than the other, and they'll go to the soft one to get what they want, knowing that the structured one is not going to give in. And then that's how they triangulate.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to enable the parents and just make it a rule in the household. One's not going to answer without the other.
Yes, I'm looking at the time, and we talk, and we almost have like already 45 minutes, and I don't want to make it too long. Um, Before we wrap it up, I want to ask if there's like youngsters listening, like I said in the beginning, and they know they have some reactive attachment issues or trauma issues, but they're willing to learn and uh, to make their lives better. What can you um, give them about your wisdom? Like I always tell them about the neurotransmitters, because that's really tangible.
Mhm.
They know, and that's also my background, and they yeah, they have like the, how do you call it? What's in the translate? Like they can deal with that stuff, but maybe you have other things you can tell them. Like you are a grown up or like a youngster, you know you have issues, but you want to approach it in the right way.
The first step is to just acknowledge, okay, my life's not working so good. And why is it that it's not working so good? I can't keep my friends, or I can't maintain jobs, or I can't. When you realize that's always the first step in everything. I mean, from mental health to business to everything. Number one, identify the problem. Number one, admit you have a problem. Number two, identify the problem. So my problem is I can't keep a friend. Okay, so now I have to look at what is causing that problem. Now, what usually happens is people go into their pity party. It's not my fault. Well, they did this and they did that and this and that, and it's not my fault. You can never change anything until you take responsibility for it. So if you say, okay, yes, they did this. However, what did I do either before that or after that that may have negatively affected that relationship? It's asking yourself a lot of questions and being very, very, very honest with yourself.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, I think this is an interesting conversation for the topic that I was asking you for today. Maybe it's nice to wrap it up by saying that you're coming to Europe.
I'll
Yeah.
be in Spain in April. I'm so excited.
Yes. Me too. So if you're listening to this and you have a kid or you have children that have attachment issues and you really want to make a like a reset set, I feel like the camp is like a week of reset. You get so much stuff reset, your brain,
Mhm.
your mind, your everything. And yeah, I'm finally after so many years have the opportunity to have the team coming to Europe.
And
And
what I will say about camp is I have been doing this work for almost 24 years now. And in those many, many years, I've done many, many camps. I've seen lots and lots of clients. I've done lots of therapy. But to me, knowing what I know and learning, having what I just knowing what I know, camp is the most effective way to learn what you need to learn to raise your kids so that they have the very best opportunity to have a prosperous and fulfilling life as an adult. And that's what all of our goals are.
yes, and I know because I came there as a family in 2016, and all the institutes and everything they were like, "Oh, there's only one solution: put your child out of the home, and we'll take care of her." And it really, really saved the life of my daughter, and it also saved my marriage, my family. So I think it's so powerful, but it's hard to put that across if you didn't experience camp. It's really
Yeah.
difficult to explain. So people just have to come, I think.
Yeah, well, and that's, I mean, even our volunteers, our volunteers come completely voluntary. They'll spend 10 days with us. And I'll tell them at the beginning, I said, you'll go home and people will ask you, what was camp like? And you just really can't tell them
Yeah.
because there's just so much that happens in so many different ways. And it's an amazing experience.
Maybe we can put a little, not like a separate clip here in the video where we can say, because I'm still putting we have the main structure finished with the
Hmm.
team, but we need some more. The team needs to grow a little bit. So maybe we can put a little spoiler, or how do you call that? Like, I'm still looking for yeah, team members, volunteers for camp. What would
Okay.
you say to them? Like if you say come to camp, and because I have a hard time explaining what it will give to them because they give a whole week to us and to the families. but it gives them also so much. So maybe you can say something about that.
They will have an experience that, like I said, is very hard to put into words.
Yeah.
Just because it is so fulfilling, so exhausting, so rewarding, so it's just so much happens at the camps. And if you've got a heart for people, to see all of these hurting families come in, and then a week later they're leaving, and you can see the difference in them. You hear the laughter that wasn't there. Everyone, all the families that come to camp usually come very anxious, very distraught, just exhausted. And when they leave camp, they're still exhausted, but they're energized, and they have hope,
Yeah.
and they have a plan for how to get out of the misery they've been living in, and they know that it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes. Well,
Mhm.
let's wrap this off.
All right.
It was great to talk to you. I see you next year. Oh, no, it's already this year.
It is this year. It's just a couple months away.
Yes. So I see you in April, May. And for the listeners, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I hope it was very inspiring for you. If you do have questions, I hope you can find me at my platform and community als Hechten niet vanzelf gaat. And you can always send us an email or call us. And I hope to see or speak to you soon. And thank you so much, Teresa, for
Welcome.
having
It
this
was my pleasure.